welcome back to the Semi-Occasional Gaming Podcast. Today I've got something a little bit different. I spoke to Thomas Jens, who is the lead programmer and co-founder of independent developer Steel Mantis. Steel Mantis have released 3 games, starting with Slain Back from Hell in 2016 and Valfaris in 2019, and they recently released Valfaris Mecha Therion last year. All of these games are thematically focused on horror, science fiction, and heavy metal, which is why I love these games so much. Valfaris in particular is probably one of my all-time favorite indie games. It's just fantastic. And if you're a regular listener to the show, you've probably heard me talk about this game once or twice. Anyway, I'm really stoked to be able to have spoken to one of the creators behind these games after all these years. And without further ado, here's the pre-recorded interview, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I enjoyed speaking to Tom. All right, Thomas, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show, and thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Would you like to just give yourself a quick introduction, who you are and what's your role in Steel Mantis, and maybe a couple of the games that you've worked on?
I'm Tom, and we've had our team Steel Mantis for some years now. I can't remember when we officially. So it's me and Andrew. It's just two of us, and I can't remember when we officially made it. Steel Mantis. I think it was for Valfaris. So this was our second game. But we sort of got together for Slain, which is our first game. But I came on board for that one towards the end of the development process. So, well, that's a whole other story. But
Yeah.
so officially, like Steel Mantis started with Valfaris, and then we did Valfaris Mecha Therion, and that's where we are now.
And Valfaris Mecha Therion, that's the latest game, which came out sometime last year. Is that right?
Yeah, it was like
Yep.
November last year, but
Yep.
it's not finished yet because we are yet to release the console versions,
Yes.
which are hopefully coming soon.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be very excited for the. You're doing a Switch version?
We are, yeah, we've been working on that quite a bit recently. To be honest, that's the one that is holding things up a bit.
Yep.
Um,
Damn Switch.
you know, yeah, it's like it's hard to we want it to actually run well on it, which means a lot of work needs to be done. We have like a porting team, and they're helping us with it. Well, they're doing most of the work, I should say, and I'm just sort of supervising it, and it's looking pretty good. This porting team is good. Like so, it. I don't think we're going to get like 60 FPS all the time,
No, I
but
didn't think so.
um, unfortunately, but it's gonna be our best port yet. I think it's gonna run better than Valfaris on the Switch, and it'll certainly
Okay.
run better than Stain on the Switch.
Yeah, righto.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so I think it's gonna be good.
Well, it sounds exciting. Yeah, you mentioned a whole other story about Slain, and I do want to go back to that first. And maybe,
Okay.
maybe if we can go chronologically about sort of the games that you've worked on. So you mentioned that you joined, or you started working on Slain towards the end of the development cycle. Now that game was funded initially by Kickstarter. Is that right?
Um, I can't remember. I mean, I wasn't involved with it at that point.
Okay.
Maybe it was. I don't even know. But so Andrew was working with a different programmer. Oh yeah, I'm a programmer. That was part of my introduction.
Yeah.
I mean, I say I feel like I'm not a real programmer because like it's not really how I got into games. I studied a games design degree, which was mostly like art and like 3D modeling and animation. And then, hang on a minute, I've just gone off on a tangent.
No, no,
Should
that's
I go back
okay.
to talking about
No, tell us about your beginnings.
All right, we'll get back to Slane in a moment. So yes, I did this game design degree, and then it was really hard to get any kind of job in the industry. Um, so I
And
just
what
started.
year was this? Sorry, like roughly how long ago?
Oh, this was like 2006.
Okay, so
So
the
that's
indie
when I.
scene didn't really exist yet.
No, not really. Yeah, yeah, there wasn't really. It was sort of everyone's idea that they would just like try to join like a big company, and um, but the university I went to, Teesside University, they were giving out grants to help start up new companies, and I started one with a friend, and I made this. I spent like a year making this game called Cyclone, which you can. I think you can still buy it, maybe, but it's like a side scrolling shooter.
I did see
Um,
a YouTube clip of that.
oh, really?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I
Well,
did find it. It's out there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've still got some old fans of that game. So I mean, I don't know. That one was like purely from my brain. That game, and I did most of the artwork. I had a little help from a friend. Um, yeah, yeah. So yeah, the guy I started the company with, he's also an artist. So he did some of the work for that. But yeah, so this was my first game, and it was it, I wouldn't say it made much money, but it was a lot of fun to make. But yeah, it was. I will say that it was difficult in my 20s, like trying to survive, because I was just, from what I was making off my games, it was like just enough to pay the rent and like eat some cereal, I guess. So yeah, after we released this game, and this was like, I would say this was a big game because it took a year to make, and then after that, I got into programming properly. So right. I made this game without programming because it was like there was these old programs, like it was called Games Factory. There was one called Games Factory, one called Multimedia Fusion, and you can just it's sort of like you can make games like without really knowing programming. Really,
It's
I
yes.
mean the same sort of principles, but um, yeah, it's much more friendly for artists, but very limiting, of course. So yeah, I made it in that, and then afterwards, I was like, oh, I better actually learn real programming if I want to continue making games by myself. So I just like went on the internet and just like Googled how do you code, and then just
Yep.
got started from there.
That's how I learn everything
So that
too. So
right. So that's why I say I'm not a real programmer because I didn't like really study it. So I feel like an imposter all the time.
well, you've
Um,
you've acquired all your skills legitimately. So I reckon that's makes you more of a programmer, right? Instead of
uh,
just being getting a qualification.
well, if you say so.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so after this, I spent my 20s making Flash games. So there's a bunch of those floating around somewhere. Um, and so the way it would work is I would make a Flash game in just like a few months, and then you get like a sponsorship deal for it, and then so go like these big Flash websites with game websites where
I do remember the old ones. Yeah.
I don't know if they're really around anymore. I feel like I'm not sure why Flash disappeared. I think it was because of mobile gaming, maybe. Um, but yeah, so I got I would make a game in a few months and then get and then basically sell it to one of these websites. and then that would just keep me going to make the next Flash
Yeah.
game, and that was life for my
Any
in my 20s.
anything I might have heard of?
I have no idea if you, I think like the most popular one was called Abduction, where you play as a alien, or like it's like a company of aliens who are like trying to make it in through difficult times. It was because it was during the like financial crisis, like credit crunch
Yeah. Okay.
times,
Yep.
and so these aliens are like abducting uh, hillbillies and grinding them up into meat and then selling it. And it's like you're sort of running a business as aliens.
That sounds really good. You should
It's pretty
revisit
funny.
that. I've got a
Yeah.
there's a game I've got a game on Switch. It's called Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
exactly what it sounds like. It's this ridiculous premise, but yeah, you're basically trading alien organs on the black market, and you're trying to make as much money as you can, doing all these dodgy deals and stuff. So yeah,
Okay.
there's definitely a market for something like that.
Yeah. Well, maybe there'll be a return to abduction one day.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so
Um,
maybe if we fast forward a bit, and
yeah.
when you started working on Slain, and at the time it was just called Slain. It wasn't. Is that right? It wasn't called
Yes. Yeah.
Slain Back from Hell yet. Could you take us through yeah, what happened? What happened on that
Um,
project?
well, um, it was the game when I came on board. It was already released, the game. But it was in not very good shape, shall we say. It was like it had a lot of problems. It was um, the programmer had abandoned it when before it was finished, really.
Okay. Yep.
So Andrew had done all the art, and it looked fantastic, but it was like barely held together. Um, so it was getting all these terrible reviews. It was barely functional, to be honest. Andrew, I think he asked his publisher, yeah, to like find a replacement programmer, and then that's how I got in contact with them. And yeah, so I got hold of the Unity project, and it was like huge mess. So I basically just I tried to work with what was there for a while, and it was just a waste of time. It was just so in the end I just deleted all the code that was there and then just started from scratch. But like
Wow.
all the levels and stuff were existed. So I just like rewrote everything, uh, and I think we did it in like 6 months. So yeah, and it was hopefully a lot better afterwards. I mean, it definitely actually works now.
Yeah. Well, that's a bit more than just like a patch, right? Like it was a complete relaunch, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. But I went really hard on that. Like we wanted to. Oh, well, the publisher wanted it done really quickly, obviously, because the game was already released and the like damage was being done
Yeah.
all the time. So uh, like yeah, I went and I just saw this as like a such a big opportunity for me because, well, like this is a real game that people are buying and not just some not some little flash game. So I yeah, I I gave it everything I had really. So and it turned out pretty well. So
Okay.
I was happy about that.
So now I kind of understand why. So I've got Slain right here on the Switch. Now I understand
Ooh,
why I couldn't find Steel Mantis on the back of the cover or in the credits. And I was going to ask you about that because your name's in there, but I couldn't find any mention of Steel Mantis. So I was kind of curious as to why. But now I get it. So yeah, Steel Mantis didn't really form until after that, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at that when Slane came out, I guess I was just like, um, some guy who just came to help.
Yeah,
Not officially, wasn't officially a team. But me and Andrew get on very well. So after working together for a little bit on that, we were just like, yeah, let's do another game.
yeah. And so maybe we'll just quickly for anyone who doesn't know. So Slain is it's a 2D pixel, I would say 16-bit style hack and slash with a say like a horror theme with a heavy emphasis on gore and heavy metal. Would that sum
Yeah,
it up about right? Yep.
yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and I love it. Like you said, it looks fantastic. I've got yeah, it came out physically on Switch, PS4. Was it on Xbox too? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was an Xbox.
Okay,
Okay.
just quick question: was the original Slain? Did that ever get released physically?
Oh, I don't think so. No, no, no.
Okay,
That's
yeah,
kind of like been lost. Like, it's. I remember there was some article that came out at the time that was like, should this be happening? Like like games lost. It should be.
preserved, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And
that.
I was just thinking like, no way, you don't want to preserve this. That,
No, well,
yeah,
look,
maybe.
I kind of get that because I mean I've got all these physical games behind me, so I kind of get the
Mm.
idea of game preservation. But maybe, yeah, this is kind of justified if you want to let that be lost to the annals of time.
It exists somewhere for
Yep.
sure.
So then after that, you guys did Valfaris,
Hmm.
which is it's a similar style, but it's more of a run and gun, and
Yeah,
and the tone is sort of shifted to a like a sci-fi horror.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. And
So
again,
it's more like,
and the heavy metal is again like very thematic in this one.
yeah, I mean, it's in the same universe
Yep.
as Rain, even though it's like a completely different level of technology. It somehow makes sense. You have to ask Andrew about that one.
Yeah, I don't recall because I don't recall the story, but I think has something to do with Valfaris's sword has something to do with the guy from Slain. I can't remember something like that. Is that maybe right?
Right. Yeah, yeah. So this the sword in Slain um, is the same as is wielded in Valfaris.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a slightly confusing story, but it all exists in Andrew's head,
Yep.
and I'm sure someone can make sense of it in the games.
Yeah. So, yeah, and as I said, so this one's more of a run and gun. So, sort of yeah, very fast pace. You're shooting and there's this yeah lasers and all that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
man, like
So
I keep looking at the cover, so I've just got it. I got it here. I fucking love this game. So
yeah,
I tell you a story about Valfaris, me and Valfaris. So I'm not good at these kind of games. Like I tend to avoid them because they're like for me they're way too hard.
mhm.
And I saw this game and I made the connection. I realized that it was from the same guys that did Slain. So I'm like, oh, I've got to try this one too. So I played it and it was very difficult for me, but I persisted and there was just something about this game that had this like allure. It just sort of dragged me back in. I kept like going back to it and I just found it so addictive despite it being brutally difficult. And I made it all the way to the end and I finished it and I felt satisfied and it was great. And I'm not one to ever play a game a second time. Like usually, once I'm done, I just leave it. And then I saw the full metal mode, and I thought, oh, which is like the hard mode, yeah. And I thought,
Mhm.
oh, I just want to see how hard the first level is. So I played the first level. I'm like, oh, that was okay. I was played level 2 as well. And then before I knew it, I was going through the whole bloody game again. And I finished it on full metal mode all the way to the end. I beat it. I'm pretty sure I unlocked all the weapons and all the secrets, and I completed it 100%. One of the hardest and best games I've ever played. It's probably up there on my one of my favorites from like the last generation of games. So hats off to you and Andrew. I think you did a fantastic job with Valfaris. I fucking loved it, and I've recommended it to a lot of friends. So yeah,
Well,
there was just something about like this. Despite me not liking this style of game generally, I just couldn't put it down. And I actually, it was funny. I actually couldn't play it at night time because my adrenaline would get so high from the intensity of the game that I'd be lying in bed afterwards for an hour just with my heart like beating so fast I couldn't bloody sleep.
oh, jeez. Wow. Wow, that's I don't know what to say. Well, thanks.
No, yeah, you're very welcome. Yeah. Um, I do have one question about the art style in Valfaris, and hopefully maybe you can answer that. Do you have anything to do with the bugs,
The
like the,
bugs.
like the the insects in the game?
Well, I'm always pushing for more bugs in the game,
Yeah.
and I think Andrew knows I like bugs. So, I mean, he likes designing like horrific bug-like creatures, of course. But maybe there would be fewer bugs if it weren't for me.
Yep. I think you, yeah, for sure. Because I noticed that on your Instagram is all full of bugs, and I thought this can't be the guy, the programmer from Valfaris. And I looked up your name and then I worked it out. But you're very mysterious, by the way. I couldn't find a lot about you online. With
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
in
that's a
terms of
good.
like interviews and podcasts and stuff, it was very little out there.
Yeah, I guess I'm quite a private person.
Yep, fair enough.
Um, but yeah, that reminds me. You know in the level the eco chambers in Valfaris, and at the end of a level you ride on an insect
Yep,
and it takes you to this hive level.
yep.
Um, oh, actually, yeah, this hive level was supposed to just be like part of a level. It was supposed to just be like an end section of the eco chambers, but I think that was where my influence. I just sort of like was like, can we just have it the entire level because it's like a proper bug level.
Yeah, okay.
Um, yeah, it's but also we were planning to have like a side-scrolling shooter section where you're on the back of the insect and like
Right, yep.
shooting, and that had to be cut because of time constraints. Really,
That's a
it's
shame.
just yeah.
Well, I mean, you kind of got back to that in the end with the next game. But
Yeah.
yeah, just before we get onto that, so I just want to ask, with Valfaris and Slain, so they were released physically, and this is like more of a, I guess, a publishing question. I'm not sure, but so because I'm quite into the physical collecting. I get like a lot of the limited run games, and their releases and stuff. So when you get a game to release on Switch or PS4, do do you have to like do they have to order a certain number to print? Like, is there a minimum quantity or something?
Oh, sorry, I don't really know
Don't
much
know.
about
Okay.
this. I'm not the publisher deal with that.
Yep.
All I know is that we're just saying like, please, can we do some physical copies? And then they're just like, we'll see if we can sort that out. And
Okay.
that's the last I heard about it, really.
And you definitely you like wanted to do physical copies.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What can I
Like,
can
I
I,
mean,
yeah, could I ask why?
sorry.
Because it's kind of unusual these days for especially for indie titles, right?
Uh, I guess so. Yeah. I mean, I like physical copies,
Yeah. Okay.
like you,
Yeah.
and I think like, especially if it's like an old school kind of game, it just feels good to have a physical version of it.
Yeah, I
And
totally agree. Yeah. Yep.
it's got and Andrew like has done some great. artwork, and it should be like on a physical version. It looks great.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
Um,
glad you guys came to that conclusion.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, I like to buy a lot of physical games. So and yeah, I've also on a couple of occasions bought some limited ones. But I think my collection's probably smaller than yours. But
Oh yeah, my collection is very modest compared to so many people I know. Like I feel embarrassed with with my measly collection here.
looks pretty good to
Yeah.
me.
I'm
Um,
very conservative. I don't buy a lot. I just sort of pick the ones that interest me, and that's it. So yeah,
yeah, um, I got Darius physical copy. Do you know this series?
yeah,
It's like yeah,
shmups. Yep.
yeah, I love that series. So well, I mean, I love a lot of the old shoot 'em ups.
Mm.
So when they re-released it on the Switch, maybe it was like a year or two ago, I went for that immediately,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
despite the massive import costs. So screw it,
Yeah,
I need
yeah,
it.
appreciate that. Yeah, so because you're in Poland, by the way, is that right? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
and Andrew's in the US.
Hmm.
So have you always lived in different continents?
Well, we're both from the UK, but uh, yeah, but Andrew's lived in the US for a long time. But I've been here in Poland for about 5 years. But we've never lived in like when we first knew each other, we were in different countries. So
Okay, so this whole time you've been working together on games separately, like overseas to each other.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
actually, we only met in real life once.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. We should do that again sometime. I'm planning to at some point go over there and see him.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. So how do you use that? How does that work? Like developing a game together, and it's not like you're just part of a team. Like you're like a co-founder of a development company, right? So like
right.
that would be pretty. I mean, I imagine that would be pretty difficult to be developing games together and not be in the same room.
Um, well, we just let's see. How does this work? Well, we do plenty of video chats,
Yeah, a lot of Zoom meetings.
and yeah, and we just use Git to like do you know what I mean? Like this online repository, so you can just like we just like can work on the same project, and it kind of works out quite well because he's in a totally different time zone. Like I'll just I'll just do all my stuff during the day, and then when I'm finishing, he's usually starting work, and then I'm just like, here's all the stuff I've done,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
like, can you please like I've got just this like cylinder which is supposed to be an enemy. Can you make it into something? And then so yeah, I'll have like a bunch of tasks which um I'd like him to do. Like, oh, we need these animations and stuff, and then I'll let him do it in his own time, and then next morning I'll find there's a bunch of stuff being done, and then sort of just goes around like that. Um, and then yeah, same for him. He's like, oh, I need, can we have this thing in the level next or whatever, and I'll get working on that. So yeah,
Well,
just do that until the
you found something that works for you, so that's good.
game. Yeah.
And so now if we go take a look at Valfaris Mecha Therion, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay, yep. So now we it's more of a shoot 'em up, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so shoot 'em up, and you've kind of deviated from the pixel art style to more of like a 3D, 2.5D, like polygonal. It kind of reminds me of
Yeah.
like a PS2 game.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's somewhere between like a PS1 and PS2 game, I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
I've when I was imagining something like R-Type Delta on the PS1. Have you played
Okay.
this one?
I haven't played that one.
Or like Einhander. Do you mean this is also a PS1 shooter?
No, I don't know.
Uh,
Again, I'm not big
okay,
into shooters, so I won't know a lot of
okay, yeah,
these.
yeah,
Yeah,
fair
these
enough.
titles.
Uh, but I'm sure whoever's watching
Yeah,
will.
for sure. Yep, they'll know.
A lot of people will know this one. But yeah, so I mean, uh, well, we like this style of like it's like quite low polygon with these kind of pixelated textures, and it has a very nice look to it, I think. And so that's kind of what we were going for. Try to keep that look from Slane and Valfaris, but
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It
uh,
does, despite being 3D now and polygonal, it still keeps the same artistic style. Like there's undoubtedly the same. Like it's undoubtedly a sequel to Valfaris. You know.
right. Well, I'm glad you say that
Mm,
because like it's quite hard to keep that kind of style going in a 3D world.
yeah, for
There's a
sure.
lot of challenges with that. But yeah, the thing is, like, it was supposed to be like just kind of a spin-off game where we weren't going to spend very long on it. We were just like, well, it's a side-scrolling shooter. We'll knock it out in like a year and then move on to the next thing. But it ended up taking like over 3 years to
Mm,
make. So I don't know. I guess for me, I can't really do uh, like a. I just wanted to go really hard on it and make it because it kept just growing and it couldn't be stopped. It's like it just like took on a life of its own. Um, yeah. So and by the way, it did not start with a um, like a mecha suit guy because yeah. It's you play as like it's Therion piloting a mecha suit,
hmm.
and it what we actually started off as like a more um, well, like it's not you normally you have like a fighter craft or something for these sorts of games, and that's what it was originally, and so the scale was different. Like it was everything was more zoomed out because you were in like a large ship and it still had to be small on the screen. So like everything was more zoomed out. But it was very difficult to create that sense of scale and still keeping that previous art style, which was always more zoomed in.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
so like because we had all these like tiny trees and stuff, and it didn't really. I don't know. Yeah, everything felt a bit weird. It didn't feel quite like Valfaris anymore. And then one day, Andrew was just like, "Why don't we just have him in a mecha suit, and then we can have it like more zoomed in, and also it's like way more cool than a spaceship."
It
And I was
is.
just
Yep.
like, "Hell yeah! How did we not think of that before?"
And it actually before you started working on it, you were initially going to make a sequel to Slain.
Oh right, yeah, yeah. Actually, we were gonna give Slane like a similar treatment with it in like 2D, but well, played as 2D, but in a 3D world. And I'd started work on that. So I'd like made this little demo where it was like you could run around, and you could even like I was experimenting with like 3D stuff with yeah like 2D gameplay, like so you could like go around this tower, run around it, and like this camera would go around, but it would and we ended up um, so I think we both kind of decided that we're kind of sick of doing platformer games, and like we
Oh
don't want to
yeah, okay.
spend another few years doing that. Um, so that so then yeah, we came up with this. Yeah, we had some kind of chat where we were like, wouldn't it be cool to make a side-scrolling shooter? Because we both love those, so why the hell not? I mean, I don't know if they like sell well or anyone wants them, but we were just like, well, who cares? We it's like it'll be fun for us.
I think
Uh,
they sell well. I do think people
well,
want them. Most people I know love side-scrolling shoot 'em ups, or just shoot 'em ups in general.
yeah, well, let's hope people will want to buy the console ones. I think they'll be more popular on the consoles. Uh, yeah, but yeah, people have a lot of expectations of side-scrolling shooters. It's something I found. Like you can do whatever the hell you want with a platformer game.
Hmm.
They can be whatever you want, but I noticed that, and that a lot of people were like asking about exactly how the scoring system will work and stuff. And I was like, well, there's not going to be a scoring system. It's just, it's kind of just like Valfaris, except you're flying around. Um, yeah, there's a lot of like preconceived notions of
Hmm.
what it must be like, and like how like the flow of the game and like the enemy waves and stuff and like it's kind of the thing is it's a long side scrolling shooter. It's not most most ones most arcadey ones are like 1 hour long or something, and we're not going to make a 1 hour long game. So I mean, I guess we could have made it more arcadey, but we wanted to be more like a slow paced, with a story, and you upgrade your equipment and stuff.
Yep.
So it's kind of, yeah, like Valfaris, but translated into a scrolling shooter. I think a lot of people like quite confused as to like what it's supposed to be.
I guess
Um,
anyone who's played the first two games would probably understand it better. But whoever, like, if someone was just came across it on the Steam store, then I guess they might be, yeah, a bit confused, I suppose. But I mean, I wouldn't be confused. I mean, like, it's just, it's a game, and it is what it is. Like, you know,
right, yeah, yeah. That's the kind of attitude I thought people would have. But
how's the
yeah,
feedback been so far?
well, people have been. Yeah, I mean, it got some great review scores, so I was very happy with the feedback on it, and yeah, I mean, there was uh, a lot of people who want it to be more like a classic shooter, and actually, I've been working on a mode that makes it a little bit more like that because there's so much demand for it, and it doesn't. It's not like I have to completely change the game to accommodate that. So I've made we've just called it challenge mode. So it's like a hard version of the game, but it has a scoring system now.
Okay,
So I've just so that'll come out with on the console versions, and you have to like unlock that by finishing the game normally
right, yep.
because it's like it's very difficult because you can run out of lives and get like a permanent. You can just game over on this
Ah,
version.
yeah. So arcade mode, right?
Yeah. Because like, and it's so difficult to get the difficulty right because
Oh,
same with the
yeah, I can
same
imagine. Yep.
so the same situation as Valfaris where I've got a lot of people saying, "Oh, this is like way too easy," and like a lot of people saying this is impossibly hard. So like it's hard to know really. And of course, if you're the developer, you like the idea of it being difficult or not is completely meaningless because you know how everything works, and it's like I can do it all easily because
Mm.
I know I programmed it. I know what's how everything's going to behave and how to win. So so it's really important to have testers because like without that fresh perspective, really there's no way to know what you're doing.
Just while on the topic of difficulty, so I've been playing the latest one, Mecha Therion.
Mm.
I'm playing it on easy though, and I'm probably about halfway through. Now I don't know if I'm guessing this feature might have translated over, but it's probably might not be there in the easy mode. But in Valfaris, you had this great game mechanic where you would collect these. I can't remember what they're called, but I think they were called resurrection idols throughout the level.
Yeah.
And you would use those, they were like a consumable item you'd use at a checkpoint. So use them to activate a checkpoint. But also, at the end of the level, you had the option to use them to upgrade your weapons, right? Or
Yeah.
you transferred them into other things. What were they called? Blood
Um,
metals?
yeah, blood metals
Yes.
and blood of Valfaris were
That's
the
right. So
upgrades.
essentially, you had this sort of risk and reward system where you could either choose to use them at a checkpoint or save them up. The game would be more difficult, but you could get more upgrades to your weapons later. So I found that I'd always do every second or third checkpoint, and that's probably what made the game so hard for me because I was challenging myself. But
Right.
the good thing was like by the time I was close to the end of the game, I was like I had every upgrade available and I was like well equipped to deal with the final boss. Is that
Hmm.
does that is that feature in Mechatherion as well?
Not really. Like
Okay.
we did experiment with that. Like we had for a long time actually, like over half of the development time, it was you could destroy the checkpoints
Oh,
and
okay.
you could get more health. Like you could extend your like maximum health.
Oh, that's interesting.
But like yeah, it would. The thing is, it was just um, in the end, the health system in this kind of game is like way more sensitive. Like people will like enjoy a shooter game where one hit kills you, and like so when you're allowing, like Valfaris is like way more uh crazy. Like you're taking hits all the time and stuff,
Yeah. Yep.
and health back. But like I felt like for the style of game, it's a lot more sensitive. Like you have like 3 or 4 blocks of health, or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on the difficulty, and it makes a huge difference if you have like one extra. So
Yeah. Okay.
in the end, it was just like, and also having watching people play it, they would just like destroy the checkpoint, like the first one, like every time, and then die and then start level again and be like, oh, this is too hard. And
And,
that's
and,
just
and
like,
not knowing what the mechanic was.
yeah, but like I made it like really as obvious as I could. Like in the tutorial was like, do not do this unless you're really sure you want to, and like, uh, but like because there's like a lot of chaos on the screen, they're like swinging their sword around, and like they might even accidentally do it, and I was just like,
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
this is too risky to keep this. But I tell you what, I put it back in for the arcade challenge mode.
Okay. Cool. Yep.
So, yeah, so
All right. Well,
it's been resurrected.
yeah. I'll look forward to that. I'll definitely get the console version, and I like these sort of kind of games on the Switch. So yeah, if you can get it to solid 30 FPS, then that'll be good.
Oh yeah, it'll be at least 30
Oh, good.
FPS.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, but just on the console version, so PS5 or PS4 or both.
Yeah, it'll be on both of them. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. And and that's on the horizon. So is this all that's on the horizon for Steel Mantis?
No, no, no. We're going to be making a sequel to Slain finally.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear.
So, well, we haven't like officially started on it, but we've been like coming up with ideas and stuff. Andrew's been doing lots of uh, well, he's already made a bunch of creatures and landscapes for it, and he's been putting those on Twitter, so you
Oh,
can see
right.
those.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. Yeah.
yeah, but it's yeah, I'm looking forward to starting on it properly. It's going to be well. I have a feeling it's going to be our best game. That's my thoughts.
Awesome. Well, yeah.
Because we have a lot of experience now, and I feel like it's it's like it's good. It's all going to come together now. We've learned a lot. It's going to be awesome, really.
So yeah, speaking of that, what is sort of your biggest? Oh, do you have any sort of biggest lessons that you've learned from? Like this is your sort of your third game in this series now. Surely you've encountered some hurdles and difficulties, whether that's programming or just dealing with dealing with people running a team. What have you found that's sort of been tricky that you've done in previous games and that you've sort of overcome with newer ones?
Well, just
Does that make sense?
well, yeah. Just like trying to learning to be a better programmer and because like the structure of the game is really important. So like a lot of if you don't plan things properly, sometimes they can really come back to bite you later.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm definitely next game. There's a lot I'm going to do to make sure things will not get so messy later on. But yeah, there's also I think I have a much better idea now of like what we're capable of, and sometimes we do push it too far. Like we get excited about some new ideas, and um, like things have always got to be cut because we always have so many crazy ideas, and yeah, like in Mecha Therion, we did have this whole mini game that had to be cut. Like I spent like over a month on it, and then it was just like not good. So
Mm.
just things like that, like to know when to stop putting time in something that's not working out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we had this mini game like do you know Contra?
Yep.
Um well, do you know in the original Contra you have these bits where you go down like a 3D corridor and you shoot things.
Yep.
We had something like that.
Okay.
Um there's a bit where Therion gets out of his mech and
Oh, that would have been
then
good.
and then while his mech is being repaired, he like a bunch of like enemies coming down like the hangar, and yeah, it was like we made like the whole thing pretty much,
Oh,
but
you
it just sucked.
should have put that in. Should have left it in there. That sounds cool.
No,
It didn't work.
it wasn't very fun, and it
Okay.
was. I mean, I could have done a much better if I had done a better job on that. It would have been good, but like it was just fundamentally not good. So in the end, we cut it. But yeah,
That's
it's a
so
shame.
it's just sort of knowing when to say no or to quit while you're ahead, cut your losses sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
like so. Yeah, just but it is hard to do because once you've worked on something for a while, it's it's good to try and get some honest opinion from someone, like to just be like, this is actually not very fun. So,
Fair
and
enough.
then you just have to swallow your pride and say, yep, fair enough. Out the window it goes.
All right. Well, maybe just before we wrap up, could I ask, do you have any like what are your? I mean, you probably touched on this already. Sort of your biggest inspirations for the games you've worked on, and I know we've sort of said Contra and a few other ones already. Is there anything else that's maybe not stylistically, but maybe are there sort of games that you've played that might have had some sort of impressive element in terms of programming or yeah the development side of things that sort of stood out to you?
Um, well, for this particular game, for Mecha Therion, it really was like 3D slash or 2.5D games on the PlayStation that really like gave me a lot of ideas and inspired me, like R-Type Delta, Iron Panda, G Darius. Like I really love those games. So and just like things like just things like going around the corners and stuff, and sometimes changing the view angle.
Mm.
Uh, and so yeah,
I'm thinking
those
of
those.
Pandemonium. That was kind of a. Did you ever
Oh
play
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I really love this style of game. And yeah, but in terms of the rest of the gameplay, like a lot of it just naturally evolved from Valfaris because we still kept that sort of like you shoot and also swing the sword,
Yep.
but now you're flying. So and you know you get the energy back from hitting things with the sword, and you use the energy by shooting. So like it kind of in some ways it just sort of it was inspired by the previous game, the gameplay mechanics.
I
We're just like,
reckon.
how do we make? Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I reckon this is got to be one of the few shoot 'em up games where you have a melee attack, right?
I think so. I can't really think of anywhere that's like one of the main weapons.
Yeah.
Maybe there is something I'm not remembering, but yeah, it is unusual, and yeah, because of that, we have to be careful about how we designed it because you can't have enemies like flying at you too fast all the time and stuff because there's no way to hit them in time with a sword,
Mm. Yep.
things like that. Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty. I think it worked out nicely. It's pretty fun hacking and slashing things in the air.
It is, and like I said, this style of game is not really something I typically play. But again, same with Valfaris, the second one. There's just something about your games that I don't know what is the art style or the thrash metal that sort of just draws me in like it's like the pheromones to a beast, like a wild animal. I just can't help it. It just sort of keeps bringing me back in. So yeah, I think you guys have done a great job. You've got a really unique IP, and yeah, I think you'll do well in the future.
Oh, thanks very much. Yeah, yeah. Well, look out for Slane 2.
Yeah, I will. I will. But I'll look out for the console releases for
Ah, yeah.
Mecha Therion.
Wow. Yeah. I hope we can get physical copies made of those. Yeah.
I hope so. I did have one more question before I let you go, actually.
Mhm.
So, probably should have mentioned that. So, you got the Celtic Frost guitarist, Kurt Victor Bryant.
Yeah.
So, he did the soundtrack for all three games, right?
Yep.
So, what do you do? Like, so when you're sort of when you're starting Mecha Therion, do you just sort of give him a call and say, hey, can you do us another soundtrack? And he'd be like, oh, yeah, all right. And he's just sort of, pumps one out for you.
Yeah. Well, so he's Andrew's friend. So
Yeah,
I don't really know him that well.
right.
But yeah. So Andrew, I think, um, yeah. As far as I'm aware, Andrew's like just asking him for um he's describing what the kind of levels are and giving him some uh like like some sketches and stuff probably and but really trying to let him have as much creative freedom
Yeah,
as possible because I think like it's good to let a musician really go for it and do what not be too constrained.
yeah.
Uh,
I did have a
yeah, but yeah,
question. Yeah, sorry, go on.
so I have made requests myself from him a few times.
Yeah.
Like we'll need some very specific piece of music somewhere, but yeah, usually Andrew's the one.
Well, when I was doing a bit of research, I was looking at their album titles, and they've got an album called To Mega Therion. Were you aware?
Yeah,
Is there any relation or significance of that?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I mean that sounds very similar. So
Yep.
yeah, that's definitely where the inspiration for the name.
All right, I better listen to that album then, and while I'm playing this game. All right, Tom. Thank you so much again. Appreciate your time. I know it's sort of been tricky to get our time zones to match up, but yeah, I appreciate
Yeah.
you putting in giving me some of your time to chat to me today, and thank you for all the awesome information you've given. Did you want to just quickly let people know where they can find your games or anything like that?
Well, okay, you can find them on Steam, you can find them on GOG, and you can find them on the Switch and PlayStation and Xbox.
So pretty much everywhere.
Uh, yeah, but yeah, thanks very much. It's been a pleasure to be here. So
Yep, like, and it's been a
yeah,
pleasure to
great
speak to
chat.
you. So yeah, thank you again, and maybe we'll chat when Slain 2 comes out at some point.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Awesome. All right, thanks, Tom. See you later, and all the best.
Cool. All right, you too. See
Thank
ya.
you. Bye. And there you have it. That was my chat with Thomas Jens, the co-founder of Steel Mantis, and you heard it here exclusively first on the Semi-Occasional Gaming podcast that Slain Back from Hell Part 2 is in the works. So if you'd like to support the show, it would go a really long way, and I'd very much appreciate it if you could leave a like, comment, subscribe to one of our socials, or leave a rating on one of the podcast channels. So I'll leave a bunch of links in the show notes of where you can find us. We're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and the podcast or the audio version is available on all the main podcast platforms: Amazon, Apple, Spotify, and all that. So yeah, please check out the links in the show notes, and any feedback as well would be much appreciated, even if it's constructive feedback. I'm always looking to try and improve the show in some way. So thanks, guys, and see you again next time.